this is a fellow who contacted me 6 years ago, and he said, "Would you be interested in going to a church in Wichita, Kansas?" And I said, "Where's Wichita, Kansas?" And he said, "Well, it's a great part of the country, and we'd really like to see maybe you come out and visit with us and talk about possibility of starting a church there." So I said, "Well, okay." So we met here in Wichita. He came down, and well, why don't you share what happened?
I'm an uneducated man and scared to get up in public regardless of what my wife thinks or says. But I guess the way to break the ice is to tell one of your most embarrassing moments of life. We got Dave and Sandy to come from New Jersey, and we picked them up in Wichita after our visitation with him and counseling with him and coaxed him to come to Wichita. And then they rode back to Lincoln with us. And Glenn Prain, he entertained us all with Lincoln. But we felt at home with Dave and Sandy, and we visited with them till bedtime, and we was going to bed. Lived in Lincoln. And Marge and I went to bed, and Dave and Sandy downstairs. We had kind of a private bedroom and bath down there. Pretty soon they hollered, "Morris, Morris, come quick, come quick." And of course the water was running all over the floor. I don't know what Sandy did. She never told me. But I run down there with my pajamas on and with some towels and wiping up the floor. And pretty soon I looked over and Sandy was next to me with her pajamas on, wiping up water. And I said, "I never thought I'd ever be wiping up water with a minister's wife of New Jersey." But that's how we got acquainted. We got acquainted real good. In fact, we are real proud to accept Dave and Sandy's children as grandchildren. They said, Jordan said, "If it's all right to you, Marge, I'll just call you Grandma." We only have 22 grandchildren, and we're going to have one more that's 23. Who knows when it'll ever stop. We've got 6 great-grandchildren and one more next month. So we can take some more. We'll accept any one of your little kids in church as our grandpa and grandma, too. We felt as if we made a fantastic choice in asking Dave to serve in Wichita. I don't think he can be replaced. And we just hope and pray that he never leaves. That he stays till he's at least as old as Shooter. And how big a Christian cathedral he'll have at that time, I don't know, and I probably won't be around no more. But sometimes I wonder. I built a big retirement center from one lady's legacy of $3.5 million. And when it was all built and completed, it's the prettiest one in Nebraska, if I got to say so myself. The man said to me, "Oh, I wish Bessie could see this place." The comment I made was, maybe she can. So maybe someday when you have a great big facility, even though my body is under the ground 6 foot, my soul and spirit will still be with you and rejoicing to see a great place in Wichita built by Dave Henyon and all the people here with God's help. We can't say enough good things about Wichita. We feel now as if the ties are cut off. I'm not going to pay even David another check. So if you guys don't take over now, why he's in bad shape. Probably have to have chicken every Sunday, and you'll have to feed him the rest of the week too. But we've enjoyed our relationship. We just trust and pray and hope that God's name will be glorified and many souls, boys and girls especially, will come to know Jesus. I made the remark to Mark, sitting eating dinner, Dave is easygoing and has a nice personality. And it seems like every man here has been touched by his life because they seem to have the same easygoing personality. I'm not built that way. I'm kind of a wiry guy. But I'm sure that David has really touched a lot of lives. And we just trust that I've had a very small part in this and done my best. And I'm real proud of David and Sandy and their family. Thank you.
I need to see this, all of you gathered here today. Somebody asked me last night how this concept ever got started. We would start a church here. And I guess it was 6 years ago, something like 6, 7 years ago, the denomination was looking across the country and trying to determine where were areas of growth occurring where we thought it would be a good place for us to begin a new congregation so that we could spread the news of Jesus Christ as a new mission. And someone came up with the concept of Wichita, Kansas, and I had been in Salina at that point for 10 years. I had been to Wichita quite frequently, did a lot of work at Wesley, did some training programs at Wesley and things, but had never really gotten to know Wichita. So I was assigned the task to do some scouting and find out about Wichita. And if you want to know how you really got started and where the birth of you began, is I had a good friend, in fact one of my mentors is Harry Murado, who's a Baptist pastor here in town with the Southern Baptist Church, was the chaplain at the youth juvenile hall here. And I used to go down to the juvenile hall here and help him out frequently. And one day he took me to the headquarters of their association, which is south here somewhere. I don't know where street it's on anymore. But we were sitting there in their conference center, and they had a huge map on the wall. And on this map on the wall, the Baptists had put in where growth places were occurring, but there were no churches to serve the areas where growth was occurring. And Harry and I sat there and I looked at that wall for probably about a half an hour to 45 minutes. And after studying that wall, I said, this is where we need to be. And went back with the message of saying there is a need in Wichita, Kansas. We talked to some of the city officials, got ideas of where growth was occurring. But for me, the birth of this church began at the Baptist Assembly Convention Center on a wall with a bunch of pins stuck in it.
Although we've only been here for about 2 years,
I'm all right. You sure?
we heard about Dave when he first came to town. Evidently he was going door to door talking to people. And this couple we were meeting with for a Bible study at the time said that they met this really neat man. He was coming around talking to people. He's going to be starting a new church. And as my husband said last night, we had just come from a new church start in California, and so we were both like, oh gosh, we're not interested in that. And for the next 2 years, we heard through this friend, he began having lunch with Dave because he just thought Dave was such a neat person. Although he wasn't interested in going to his church, he just met with him once a week and prayed with him. They had lunch, and he kept telling us about Dave and about their church and their meeting in his school. And one night when we were at their house, Dave came by, he had a big pickup. And he came in and we were introduced to Dave, and I remember thinking at the time, there's that poor man trying to start a church. I felt so sorry for him. He has to walk door to door and meet people, trying to get people to come to his church. And Doug and I, for 2 years, was like, we're not interested. No, we're not interested. And then it's like, it was just meant to be, because people, through other people, we just kept hearing about this church, and then we came one Sunday, and the rest is history, but we're glad to be a part of it.
I shared our story this morning with Kurt. Probably some of you know how we started here. I had heard about Dave and Sandy too. I hadn't met him, but my mom had told me there were some people in their neighborhood starting a new church, and I thought the same as Daylene. I thought, oh, those poor people, what a job. But I hadn't met him. Well, the night that my dad died, he was a neighbor to Dave and Sandy, and Dave heard the ambulance, and came, being the kind, passionate person he is. He came to see what was going on, and I think Dave realized a little more than we did at that time, and he knew how serious the situation with my father was, and went to the hospital with us, and my dad did die unexpectedly that night. Dave was there with us and really ministered to us and helped us that whole week. know what we would have done. I mean, Dave was a virtual stranger to me, and there he was. And I belonged to another church, and a good church, and I was pretty active there, but not one person from my church called on me or anything. And here I just lost my father, and Dave, a stranger, was there, being as good to me as he could be. And when Sunday came, my mom said she wanted to go to Dave's church. He'd been with us all week, and she and my dad had talked about going, and never had done it. So off we went to Dave's church. We went every Sunday for about a month. And my mom says to me, she goes, I'm okay, I'm strong enough, and I can go by myself if you want to go back to your church. But the Lord said to me, no, Carol, you stay right here. And I'm just so thankful that I did. And not just Dave and Sandy, but their family. All of you, you've all become family, and you're all really important to me. It's awesome to me to sit on a Sunday morning and look around at the people, because I can remember when we were at the church, and it was Dave and Sandy and Carol and Mary and your kids, and Moan and Amy and Rachel was small. I mean, if we had 10 people on a Sunday morning, we're like, 10 this morning, we were happy. It's just an awesome thing to be a part of. I'm really excited, and I couldn't believe this morning when we had the ceremony, I'd been thinking, oh, this is really neat, we're becoming a church, but I didn't think about how my heart was going to feel, and that was just an awesome thing when that happened. I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. I love all of it.
We had moved from the east side to the west side in 1992, and Larry was not happy at the church home that we'd had before, and so he was not a real regular attender. I kept telling him, I said, there's this nice minister, he loves baseball, Larry, you've got so much in common with him. He keeps coming, knocking on the door at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I keep telling him to come back at 6. He won't do it. You have to meet him. You just have to. He will change your life. Well, Larry just said, yeah. He wasn't too interested. So Larry kept telling me, we'll go to church on Easter Sunday. Well, the first Easter came and went, and we didn't go. And the second Easter came, and it was like a week before, and we kept getting the newsletters, and I kept asking him, I said, are we going to go to church this Easter? And he kept saying, okay, the one that keeps sending you the stupid newsletters, you can go to that church, and I'll go with you. And we have not missed, I don't think, a handful of Sundays since then, and that was Easter of 1993. And we've been coming ever since. And like I said, Larry likes baseball, Dave likes baseball, and there was a common rapport right there. We've loved it ever since.
I had a house built in Cambridge Estates out here. My brother and I, my 2 kids, moved in. Right into it. Anyways, we moved in, and lo and behold, Pastor Dave is living across the street from us. And noticing everything we do, I'll tell you right now. Well, hopefully he didn't tell you anything. But anyways, my father is a Baptist minister here in town. I wasn't at that time very regular in going to church. I wasn't really happy there anyways. And about this time I met who's my wife now, Nancy. And months go by and we got married. We've been living next door to Dave, and I can tell you, he is an outstanding man. And I am thoroughly impressed with his attitude and how good a Christian he is. But anyways, my wife and I got married. My wife is a Catholic, was a Catholic. Well, my dad's a Baptist minister, as I said, and her mom and dad are devout Catholics, so it was kind of not a very good mix. One Sunday, we'd take the kids to Catholic church. The next Sunday, we'd go to Baptist church. And that wasn't working out very well, and we talked about it, and we thought we needed to find a common ground and get the kids to something they could understand and say that that's what we are. Well, Nancy told me, she says, well, Dave, she said, let's go to his church. I said, okay, let's try it. And that was back 3.5 years ago, I think, in 92. And here we are today. We've still been going. I never looked back, and I feel better here than I ever have in any church. And I feel that I'm becoming a better Christian than I ever have in my life. And I think a big part of that is because of the wonderful example that Pastor Dave has set for us.
Right, Doug. The way that I started coming to Harvest Community was Jan Hortons, my sister-in-law. And she kept inviting Buck and I to come. And finally I started going because Buck and I's marriage was in big trouble. And I was going to do anything I could to save it. And anyhow, we started coming, and of course our marriage went down, and as most of you know, we got divorced. And but Dave, he don't give up on nobody. So he kept it Buck, and he kept checking in with me every now and then. And finally, Buck went to AA and stopped drinking, and we started counseling with Pastor Dave, and we're talking about getting married again. And so we just got to get him said that thing. But anyhow, that's one thing I have to say about Dave is he just don't ever give up on anybody.
I got a little frog in my throat, so. Anyways, that was great. When Kuma was talking about that, when you said you were a little wiry, I think that describes me too. The other day I've had some time with Dave and talking about how I've always related to the Doc Hollidays and those types and stuff. And the things been going on with my family and my kids, because I just really realized that I had to relate with Jesus. And anyway, Dave, your church reminds me of a movie I saw, gosh, must have been 20 years ago. And it's about St. Francis, how he was kind of a spoiled rich kid or something, and he, became a monk or something, I don't know. But there was this scene where he had started a little church of all these mongrel type people, these what was considered the mutts. And they were in this broken down building with no roof on it, and just bricks were kind of halfway up and everything, but they were all singing a song called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. And yeah, I remember the era that movie was made. It was kind of a hippie time and everything, but I've never forgotten that feeling. People in the audience at the theater were crying and stuff because it was so rich, and but it depicted something that everybody wanted. And we don't have this church building yet, and we're meeting in something other than a church building. But we have people that are from every kind of attitude, not just walks of life, but every kind of attitude of life too, that has been accepted here. That we have not been required to, become clones of some kind, that we've really been allowed to progress at our own speed. And Dave's been real patient with me, man. I've told him stuff I was getting ready to do, and I'm not even going to tell you. But, with the friendships of people just walking up to Susan and I and our kids, and with our kids, they'd be in the back seat driving home, and when we were first coming, and we've been here about a year, but they would go, we really like this church. These people are really nice. And for two raccoon little boys, to be able to say something like that, I just knew we were in the right place, and I know that it's the example of all of you guys, especially because I really look at you men a lot, and as far as to help me kind of understand maybe how I should be a little bit better, and being a man to my two boys. So even though Susan's not here, she had to work today, she wanted to be here. We both really love this church. I'm not a person of much commitment by nature. And when Kurt, you said that about throwing the hat over the wall, it was just a real stinger, because I'm just going, we have to throw our hat over the wall. And I'm just real pleased and proud to be a brother to all you ladies, and to be a brother to all you men, and hopefully we'll be better at it.